Welcome back, everybody, to the Triad of the Force, a Puerto Rican podcast. I am your host, Gustavo. Welcome back. If you're listening to us, thank you for joining us once again. I know we have been in the madness of The Mandalorian and Grogu, and of course, Rada the Hutt. But within that, we have to take a small break because we always like to make new fans and revisit other Star Wars projects that we love. And today we have a very exciting guest to talk about a very exciting book about a very exciting product that we loved when it came out. So we're very happy to be able to talk about it today. So please join me in welcoming friend of the channel, KRISTIN Baver. Welcome, KRISTIN. How's it going?
Oh, it's going so well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
It's so great to have you. We've been wanting to talk to you for a while. I know we've met a couple of times. Apparently, a year ago, I didn't realize we were talking a little bit before we started recording. A year ago already. I can't believe it's been that long since we were in San Francisco to do a roundtable interview for some Andor season 2 press, and you were our very gracious host up there in Lucasfilm. So thank you for letting me know that time is a cruel mistress and it's unrelenting.
Truly it is, but what a red letter day that even a year ago it feels like it just happened and was such a fun day at the office. So thank you so much for coming and also super excited to anytime I get to just hang out all day talking Star Wars. So
It's been like a really good couple. I mean, I know a lot of people like to say that Star Wars is dead, but I don't know. It's been a good couple of years to Star Wars, at least from my perspective. It's feel like it's been nonstop, and the celebration for this franchise has been ongoing from from Andor season 2, and I know things that Lucasfilm has been particularly crazy lately with not just Mandalorian Grogu just releasing, but May the 4th and Maul Shadow Lord. So it's Star Wars is thriving, and apparently today that they were recording is a year to the day from the release of Star Wars Starfighter next year for with Ryan Gosling and director Sean Levy, which is very exciting to think about that. Mando and Grogu is kicking off the new cinematic life force for Star Wars after 7 years, and now we have so much more to look forward to. But today we're not looking forward. We're looking back in a very fun way to look at your latest publishing effort. This bad boy, one of my favorite things that Star Wars publishes, all the art books, The Art of Star Wars, The Acolyte, which I was very excited for. What a beautiful cover, by
oh,
the way.
so
So
beautiful.
it's a great book, great book. Congratulations
So,
on
thank
it.
you.
But you're not just the author of The Art of Star Wars: The Acolyte. You're a prolific Star Wars author. I mean, you're the editor in chief of StarWars.com, so you're not just in charge of a lot of the articles that are published there, but writing many of them yourself. But then you also have Skywalker: A Family at War. You have the Art of Star Wars: The High Republic, volumes 1 and 2. So lots of publishing on your end.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, there's no shortage of Star Wars to talk about. There's no shortage of exciting things happening. Um, and I'm so grateful to get to not only work on StarWars.com day to day, but also write so many books that I just adore. I grew up such a reader and always really wanted to write a book, but ended up just working in a space where I was a journalist first
Mhm.
before I moved over and started working for Lucasfilm proper and on StarWars.com full time. So it was just something that I think it felt very much like a pipe dream until I worked on Skywalker Family at War. And even then, that being the first book that did publish, I remember the time feeling like this might be the only time I get to do this, and that's still great. I am so excited to do it, and this is such a fantastic, fun, creative exploration of what does a biography look like if all of
Mhm.
your subjects are fictional and you can't talk to anyone, and there's no actual like records to go to figure out and delineate like what are the events of their lives other than, of course, the books, the comics, and the films. So just such a fun exercise. But I truly never take it for granted because even after that book was done, I felt like, well, that was amazing. If that's the only time I ever get to write a
Mhm.
book, that's okay. Had a great time doing it. Left it all on the mat, as they say, and then was really lucky to very quickly be asked to do an update to year by year and
Mhm.
have very consistently been working on either solo books, team books, or contributing the occasional short story to an anthology or to Star Wars Insider here and there as well.
It's such a fascinating and mind-blowing thing to hear, right? Because you like for at least, for someone who does a podcast like this and it's just a Star Wars fan, like it's so, at least for me, it always feels so far away, right? Star Wars is like this thing, this mythos, right? That's created by all these people that you'll never know until like have you like on a show like this and be kind of connected to that process. Is so fascinating because it's tangible, but it's still magical, and it's
Mhm.
part of Star Wars is about a hero's journey, and all of us have like that hero in us that takes a journey, and we've been very lucky to have Star Wars by our side. So I want to know about your journey, before we talk a little bit about, well, not a little bit, before we talk properly about this wonderful book. But I want to know about your Star Wars story. You were talking about, how you were a journalist before you came to Lucasfilm, but what was that Star Wars environment for you as a journalist and before that, until you got into Lucasfilm?
Yeah, so I was definitely I grew up in a Star Trek household,
Nope,
believe it or
spicy.
not. But I know, spicy. You're here with the hot takes. Star
Oh, we're
Trek
all friends. We're all
household.
friends.
We are all friends. You know what? Any Star Treks, Wars, we love them all. They're very different things.
Oh yes.
Um, but grew up on like a lot of sci-fi, just also really loving movies and TV shows and newspapers actually of all things, but mostly like the comic strips and books and just all of it. And so it was interesting because my relationship with Star Wars came later, and it was something that I felt like I kind of discovered on my own, but was very much of that generation who was discovering it when prequels are starting up and special editions are in theaters.
Mhm.
So I remember just like the joy of getting to see Star Wars that I had watched a million times in my house. Um, in the regular VHS version, but
Mhm.
to get to go see it in a theater, and I thought, "Well, this will never happen again. This is amazing." And then the prequels come out, and, we get to the end of Revenge of the Sith, and I thought, "Okay, I love this, but I guess we're done. Guess we're done here." And,
Mhm.
so what really kind of, like, pulled me back into it in a huge way, I think, was in 2015
Mhm.
when I went to see Force Awakens, and I had such a visceral emotional reaction to that story because it was like coming home to something,
Mhm.
and it was like reuniting with old friends in a very real way. But at the time, I think I was also just kind of starting to think about, like, I was working at a daily newspaper and starting to think like maybe this is not what I always want to do forever, every single day of my life, but what could that new thing be? And
Mhm.
being so in love with Star Wars and seeing Force Awakens and being reminded of how special it is and how important it is to me, then led me to exploring, like, are there ways that I can express this in writing? Can I
Mhm.
is there, and I never thought of it at the outset as like, perhaps I will go do this full time somewhere or write books. I think I was really more just like trying to harness something that I loved and turn it into like a side gig and a side hustle and just like, let's see where it takes us. But at the bare minimum, wouldn't it be great to, get paid to watch Empire Strikes Back again? I'm gonna do it anyway. So I may as well write an essay
Correct.
about Han Solo when we're done. Yeah. So I was
Yeah.
like, this is cool. This is a great use of my free time. And it really then it just it exploded in a huge way for me in terms of just leading me down the path that ultimately led to this moment.
And it's been fulfilling, right? Because it's not just
Oh
been
my
like
gosh,
on
yeah.
the publishing end, but you've also been able to host the Star Wars show and been
Yes.
hosting the Star Wars Celebration live stage, and not just in Tokyo, but also stateside and in London. So it's been quite the journey, I
It's
think.
been quite the journey, and I gotta say, when it comes to hosting, you might not believe me. Your listeners might not believe this, but I was a painfully shy kid, and I still feel quite introverted, like in my day-to-day life. However, I can be professionally extroverted and
Hmm.
just like get out there and some of that also I think comes from being in the news industry, needing to talk to everybody, all walks of life, in all kinds of weird situations,
Hmm.
preps you in a amazing way, as it turns out, for live stage hosting. When anything that can go wrong will, especially the teleprompter just not working, and that's okay, like, you just figure out how to move with it, um, but it's fascinating to me that I still identify as, like, primarily introverted,
Hmm.
but sometimes I see footage and I'm like, "Yeah, no, that looks like an extrovert, though, right up there, talking to, Ryan Gosling and not having a problem with it and just, rolling through it." And I think it's just such a special part of the job that I get to do where I really love talking to people, love talking to just people of all walks of life. So
Hmm.
it just kind of folds into that as an extension of it when we get to do celebration. And also just like anyone who's ever been at celebration knows, I think that it's just like the best of the best in a room. It feels
It's
like
homecoming.
walking, yeah, and it's like if an event could be a hug, it would be Star Wars Celebration to me,
Agree.
where it's just like you're just so overjoyed and everyone is like just operating on a whole other level of
Hmm.
excitement. And plus I just think it's so nice when you're in a room, and in this case it's like an arena or a convention center, but it's like you have something in common with everyone who's there.
Hmm.
'Cause you all love the same thing. And so, like, that can be very grounding, and I feel like, is just, uh the baseline of why that event is so special because it's like we're all connected and we know it going in, and then we connect further over all of the new things that are coming out and all the amazing, really exceptional moments that come out of
Hmm.
celebration.
Like, is there a moment when you are looking at extroverted Kristen and what you've done for at at Star Wars Celebration stage? Is there like any particular moment that stands out to you?
Ooh, it's a good question.
Because I know for
Hmm.
lot of people always think of Sigourney Weaver with the bazooka shooting shirts at people. Like, was
Yes.
there a moment like that you were like, what's happening? How is this real?
Oh, I feel like there have been so many moments like that actually. And so it's like really
Fair.
hard to pin down one, right? Yeah, like I know I already mentioned him, but we got to talk to Ryan Gosling and Sean Levy right after they had announced Starfighter. So like they
Hmm.
come off of that stage, walk, whatever distance and show up on the live stage. And so it's like this thing has just happened. They've just unveiled this to the world, and now we're talking through things, in the live stream space, which is totally nerve-wracking no matter who you are. But, again, it's like you're surrounded by all of these lovely folks in the
Yeah.
audience who are just so excited about um, anything that comes out of that. So, yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think same celebration, but getting to talk to Dave Filoni and Pedro.
Hmm.
Uh, Together about Mandalorian and Grogu, but it was like the moment too where Pedro was wearing the boots. You've seen the photos?
Yes, yes, and
Yeah.
with the capri. No, no, they weren't
Yeah.
capris. They
No,
were
but it was
shorter than
like
capris. Yeah,
longer shorts and the
yeah.
boots, and he like actually this is a great answer for your question. I meandered a bit, but during that interview, he Dave took off his hat and Pedro picked it up and put it on,
Hmm.
and I was just like brain misfiring. This is
Yeah,
amazing. What do I say? Like I was like I don't want to interrupt this. This is like such a moment, but yeah, it's so fascinating to see things like that unfolding in real
yeah,
time and then getting served them occasionally as like a reel where you're like, "Oh, I remember that, but I remember that from a slightly different angle,
yeah.
actually." Because I was just right there.
It must be. Yeah, it must be such a bizarre thing because to go through and experience this like in first person, but all of a sudden like seeing all the third person recordings of it. It's kind of the experience must be bizarre between the memory and the memory of the memory, and then everyone's
Yeah.
recording of it. It's must be wild,
But it's
especially because.
also well, I was just gonna say it's also kinda nice though because, as you know, it's like when you're at celebration and the days are so, like, long and super packed with things, like, we can have so many exceptional moments in a day that it's it's really lovely that there is a recording of it because
Yeah,
sometimes when I'm watching back, I'm like, "Alright, that did happen yesterday." But it's like there've been so many
it's
cool
a
things.
haze.
Again,
Yeah,
like, this
yeah,
is such a humble brag, like, "Oh, we have so many great things happening," but it's true, it's just like there's such a embarrassment of riches and just such, like, an onslaught of, very cool things happening one after the other in those scenarios where it's just like it's actually really nice to be able
Yeah.
to look back and be like, "Oh, right." And then we also had all these other amazing folks come up on stage.
And it must be really interesting because, you know, obviously when you go to these events, you're not doing it, you know, you're not coming in cold, right? You have a script and you know more or less what's happening. You have all the behind the scenes, you know how of like how the script of how things are gonna go, but that doesn't remove, right, the excitement of things because, you know, in my very limited experience when we were very fortunate to be in San Francisco for the Andor event, yeah, we did get that schedule of like, well, this is how things are going to go hour by hour, minute by minute, but still doesn't prepare you, even though you
Yeah.
know that things will happen. When they
Yes.
happen, it's still like a magical, it's still magic.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's one of the, oh, please, yeah, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just gonna say, I think that's one of the magical things about Star Wars in general too. It's like from very early days in the 70s, there was not a preciousness about how things were made.
Hmm.
There were always like making of specials, you know, videos, books, like a lot of like let's peel back the curtain and look at how this is done because it's an amazing amount of artistry and collaboration, but it never changes how magical it is when you're
Hmm.
watching it for me. So it's just like, yes, I know exactly how that AT-AT or AT-AT, depending on who you are, was, you
Personally,
know,
88.
animated. There you go. It's a 50-50, I think, but it's like you know how it's the technique is done, and yet when I'm watching those films, I never think, "Oh, yes, stop motion animation." I'm just like, "It's gonna crush you with its foot." Like,
Hmm.
"You gotta get out of there." Like, totally, totally demystifying how it's done does not change the magic of watching it,
I
in it.
agree. I agree. There's a lot of people that I know that when we're talking about how movies are made or VFX and all these things, they always, or you know, or we're talking about magic or this is things like that. Doesn't necessarily have to be Star Wars. This is like, oh, I don't like to know how the thing is made because it removes the magic for me. And it's such a bit, at least for me, you know, I'm an architect, so like I'm steeped in design in a very tangential way, right, from a lot of the people that we're going to talk to, and in the way that you're also creative. But it's one of those things that it is the magic, right, for me, and like it's like making it is seeing the wizard, right? Like for me, the wizard isn't necessarily Obi-Wan Kenobi. It's the person that made the wardrobe, that figured out how to put the reflective tape on the lightsaber to get that first lightsaber effect, so on and so forth, to kind of get all this spectacle that now we're able to enjoy. But like all these wizards at ILM that and beyond that are able to kind of craft all these wonderful images that all of a sudden become celluloid and we're able to enjoy, and it increases, right, the magic. And one of the things that I remember from growing up that I really particularly loved was, you know, the era of the DVD. You know, we had with, especially I remember my special edition Star Wars DVDs and having that fourth DVD that had Empire of Dreams and all those other behind the scenes things that kind of see how Star Wars was made. It was like so valuable, at least to me. And I mean, might have watched that even more than some of the movies. And same with Lord of the Rings, right? Like those behind the scenes featurettes that all three of those films included were, I know for a lot of people, like very defining, like who they were as like future filmmakers or artists. And you know, now the era of the DVD might not be as powerful as it was before, but in a lot of ways, like these like books like yours, like the art of the Acolyte, or the books that Phil publishes and Pablo publishes, are like those glimpses into how Star Wars is made and like all the wonderful people that are involved in it. So thank you for writing them because they're a treasure trove for all of us in a lot of
Well, thank you
ways.
for reading it, but all and looking at all the beautiful art, but also I have so much gratitude for Lucasfilm Publishing and for Abrams continuing to invite me in to do more of these projects. Of course, Phil Shostak will always be the Jedi Master in my heart of the art of projects. He does amazing work. But I think at this point too, there's maybe too many Star Wars things out in the world for one person who also has a full-time job to write every single book. So it's lovely that we can share in
It's
that
a good
and
problem to have.
It's a really good problem. We love this problem, but, I have been so delighted to get to participate first with Art of High Republic and then more
Mhm.
recently with Art of the Acolyte.
And we'll talk a little bit about the art of High Republic because they're intrinsically linked, and I think that's one of the beautiful things of the Acolyte as a series is how it's very, if you know, like it has all these connections to the High Republic that that doesn't, you don't need to know, and it won't detract from your enjoyment. But if you're like me, and you went through the journey from phase one all the way to phase three, going into the Acolyte was really, a really joyful experience, and I really love that show. Here's to hoping that season two still somehow it's manifested. But I was talking before, right, about scripts for the Star Wars celebration, or for the interviews that you and I were participating in San Francisco, because in a way, like, this book is a script, right? In a way, it's like the backbone for the show. I mean, not necessarily the book, right, but the contents within it. It's like all this buffet, or this menu of beautiful artwork and maquettes and study models and paintings and sketches and renderings of like all the different aspects of the show, from costuming to sets to hairstyles. Like, there's so many different things in here, which is, I think the first thing that strikes me that struck me when I was reading this is the sheer quantity, right? So I think that's kind of how I want to kick things off, to start talking about the book. It's just like, to catalog such a large amount of art, right, with so many artists and collaborations. It's a daunting task.
Yes.
What was the process, right, of collecting the art? Like, do you begin during pre-production, during production, or is it like after the show aired that you kind of are able to go through the art?
So, oddly, it's all of the above. So we do start very early going through the art because, of course, it's primarily created during pre-production and they're using it to build off of. So it is available before the show is ready to watch. So I did have it early on, and it's funny to go back and listen to some of the early interviews I did for this book because I was clearly backing into my knowledge of it, where I'd just be like, "Hey, this Pip droid, there's a lot of art for him. I'm assuming he's important."
Hmm.
I don't know yet, but it's like, so some of the questions are like, "Walk me through this," because I haven't seen it yet and we don't know exactly the context, but you can tell sometimes just from how much uh, care went into figuring out what is the exact right color scheme for this. Or Basil is another great one where there is a
Hmm.
lot of art for how are we going to make this Legends species
Hmm.
something that works in live action today, and what does that look like. Um, so some of that kind of helps to dictate. And then of course, once you've read the scripts, started to see the episodes, started to kind of understand better like what the final design is for all of these characters, locations, vehicles, ships, all of that good stuff. Some of the props and other
Hmm.
elements. Then you can really start to, I think, assess and figure out like the structure of the book, and which pieces are absolutely, we definitely want to include this, and which pieces are, nice to haves, but we know there's only so many pages actually in these books, and
Hmm.
they're way more art than you can ever actually include in one of them.
You were talking about those interviews, right? And it must be challenging, right? Especially when you're looking at like how to interview during the pre-production, and you don't particularly know like what the end book is going to be, or what the end show will look like. So like, how do you prepare for all those interviews, especially because you have some interviews with Leslie and Amandla. So like, what's the, and obviously so many of the artists, so like, what's the process to prepare for those without really knowing like what the final product's going to be?
I know I said Phil was a Jedi Master, but we all know there can be more than one, and Leslie was absolutely the Jedi Master, of this. I mean, not only the show, creator of the show, but the Jedi Master leading me through the process of it, and she was the first person we spoke to, and she was the last person we spoke to as
Mhm.
well. So she really bookended the whole process for us, but was just such a gracious interview subject, both like just with her time, but also full on, like I would share my screen and show some of the pieces that I was thinking of including, and she would tell me stories behind them, or sometimes she'd be like, "Oh, you need to get this one piece," and she would share some of her preferred pieces or things that she felt really passionate about. And you're always looking to tell a good story in one of these books too,
Mhm.
right? So it's like you go with some of the art that's really stunning, or some of the art
Mhm.
that shows a really neat circuitous route that maybe we took to get from the idea of a character to the final execution. But also, you want to talk to everybody involved that you can, who can share their own personal stories of,
Mhm.
I was thinking about this when I drew that, or, just give you that context and those insights that you're not going to get anywhere else. But really, a lot of the preparation is just looking through as much of the art as
Mhm.
we can, and kind of prepping for, we think we should focus in on these elements, but being open to an interview subject saying, "Nope, this was the most important thing that I designed. Can we talk about that?" And just, being ready to pivot on a dime. But also really helpful just doing your research and knowing if your interview subjects are people who have talked a lot about either this project or other projects, like um, listening back or reading up on some of their previous interviews and knowing enough of their work that, like, I think with this one, there was an element where one of our interview subjects started talking about V for Vendetta. And
Mhm.
I was
Mhm.
like, yes, I knew that you worked on this, but I did not know that you worked on it in this capacity. And so
Right.
just uh, being well versed enough in their resume and in their accolades that if they kind of make an offhanded remark, you can catch it and exactly the context of it.
I want to follow up on that because I think
I love a
it's
follow-up
very
question.
very interesting, right? Because the book, like we were mentioning, you were talking to Jedi Master Leslie, but you were talking to like all the artists that were involved, that like people like Kevin Jenkins, who are key to making a lot of the work in the book. So like, what's the, and there's so many artists, right, that probably maybe didn't even make the cut into maybe being interviewed, unfortunately, because there's such a large team. So what's the process for, like, what are the pieces from those artists that get selected, but then the artists that themselves get to be interviewed for that, like what's your process to getting those interviews?
It's a great question, and we are very much always looking to collaborate and partner with the people who are at the heart of the project, which is the people who are working on the production. So, in this case, with Kevin Jenkins, being the production designer, being the person who's really leading the charge with Leslie on a lot of those concept art elements that are being generated. It's really just giving them the reins in some cases, and just letting Kevin Jenkins help lead the charge
Hmm.
of which pieces he finds are essential. I think as the HOD also, he's always looking,
Hmm.
as are all HODs, to kind of make sure that their whole team is represented and get as many folks in different a variety of pieces from everybody as you can. And then I think we had a couple of individual artists that we did talk to for this one, and some of that was also, just owing to, uh, especially if like they work in the same building that I do. Like, I will email you, I will chat
Hmm.
you, I
Hmm.
will ask you, would you like to email a little bit and answer some of these questions? So for sure, if it's somebody that we know, because they also work in San Francisco, I'm definitely gonna at least give them the opportunity, give them the option. But it's interesting because when you do talk to enough folks that are at that very high level of like the Leslie, the Kevins, the Neil Scanlons, like the people who are
Hmm.
leading the individual pods that really make up the core of the production, you do get a lot of like the high level stories, a lot of the really cool kind of anecdotes
Hmm.
you do get from those interviews, and then you're just kind of filling in where you need to, where uh, they will also every single time lead you to, hey, you should talk to this artist because
Hmm.
they have
Hmm.
a pretty cool take on this, or they have a personal story behind this, and
So
just
the
doing those
path reveals
follow-ups.
itself almost.
Yes, it does. It does.
You were describing Leslie as the Jedi Master. And in your conversations with her, I imagine that she must have given you so many insights, many of which are obviously recorded in this book. But what would you say was the most memorable insight that Master Jedi Leslie gave you?
Ooh. Uh, I Well, so there's 2 things that come to mind, with Master Headland. The first being the first time I ever met Leslie, I didn't know I was gonna do this book yet. I hadn't seen anything with Acolyte, but we were at Celebration, and for some reason, I was already out on the stage, so I didn't get a chance to, like, do a quick handshake or anything
Hmm.
beforehand. And so they, like, played played her on, basically, opened the blast doors, and she came, like, just, like, dancing down the catwalk at me, and I was like, "Who is this amazing person?"
Yeah, yeah.
I immediately adore her. And so I feel like that was kind of like the beginning of, for me at least, like, understanding who is this person and what are they bringing to Star Wars, and it is such a personal story, and I think that's the
Hmm.
kind of the other half of my answer for this is what really struck me is how personal this story was for her, not only as a fan of Star Wars, but
Hmm.
putting herself into the work. And then she's had some really amazing, beautiful insights that we were able to capture and include in the book, especially around the design of the stranger.
Hmm.
And everything from him being her favorite character and how much she feels like scene or the parts of her experience in the world are reflected in things that you know in quotes in lines of dialogue that are given to him then in the series, but then also just like that idea. And I think anybody who's had create anybody who's creative can relate to this, where sometimes you just get like an immediate flash of something that sticks in your mind,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
then that propels you forward, and it's the beginning and the end point. And so I think in this case it was hearing her talk about, and other folks talk about, how like this smile that is
Hmm.
unsettling was kind of the core of the brief when it came to designing the stranger. But then it took a lot of different artists and
Hmm.
explorations and trying to really hone in on it, because it's like, when is a smile not a smile? When does it become
Hmm.
unsettling? When does it have those horror elements? And just like dialing that in. But also, like, it cannot be understated that it is incredibly daunting to have to come up with a new Star Wars villain helmet.
Hmm.
We already have Darth Vader and Kylo Ren, but it's like you already have like the most iconic villain in all of cinema, I would say. I mean, I'm biased, but I would say like Darth Vader's right up there. So to have to follow in those footsteps in any way, shape, or form has to be incredibly daunting.
I think they succeeded. One of those. I try to keep my collecting to a responsible amount. Otherwise, I'll be kicked out of. My partner will kick me out of this home. But one battle that I did win is having the stranger's mask like in a shelf in our bedroom. So I do have that unsettling smile looking upon me every time I go to sleep. So
Immediate
not bad.
pre-order. The moment they announced that, I was like, "Where can I buy this? I need this right now." And even when I was purchasing it, I was like, "Obviously, I need this for multiple reasons, but I can't wait to do a photo shoot with this book and have it as one of the
Hmm.
elements,"
Hmm.
because I always try and do like some kind of photo shoot with the new books that are coming out. It's almost like first day of school
Of
vibes.
course, of course. You
Yeah,
you
but it's like I'm
must.
so excited. I was like, we need some High Republic and some specific elements. So I'm like, this is also my way of enabling myself to buy more things, I think. Obviously. But oh gosh, I love that
Justified,
helmet
I
so
would
much.
say.
Justified, justified. And I'm sorry, I'm just gonna keep going back to favorite celebration memories. I feel like I'm probably just thinking of it too, because celebration is also just 10 months away? Is that right? Have I
Crazy,
done the math
crazy.
correctly? Crazy.
Eh,
But another just
yeah, 10 months, yeah.
really favorite moment was, in Japan, when we were able to give Manny Jacinto one of the first
Mm,
Stranger
mhm,
helmets,
yeah,
on stage, and just really, like, thank him. And
mhm.
I know, like, so many people love that character and his,
Oh, yeah,
performance, and the whole
and
cast
his biceps
what
too.
people love the biceps, as it turns out.
Yes.
Um, but really just lovely, because when we first met him, our first interview with him, he had mentioned that he never got one and he was hoping to get one, but he didn't take a helmet
Oh,
from
he was
set.
too nice to
He
steal
didn't
one.
have one. Yeah, too nice to steal, as it turns out. That should be the name of his biography. But so just being able to, like, close the loop on that and be like, "We know
Mhm.
you wanted one of these. They're making them. Here you go." It was just such a really special moment.
That's amazing. I mean, we all should get one. Like, what is a Star Wars fans collection without a Cortosis helmet?
Exactly.
It's
I need the
we were
gauntlet
blessed.
now. I really want the whole shebang.
They do. I can send you some links because I do follow some creators on Instagram that have some really nice uh, reproductions that they hand paint.
Ooh,
Because fans are on it. If there's a
I know.
gap in Lucasfilm merch, the fans got it. So I
Yes,
think that's one of the beautiful things about about this fandom.
it is. It
Um,
really is.
you were talking though about like a lot of the themes and how personal the story of the Acolyte was for Leslie in crafting the Acolyte itself. And one of the things that I thought was interesting about the book, as opposed to maybe some other art or reference books that I've seen before, is like how the book is organized, right? I thought it was very interesting how you decided to kind of tackle the book as opposed to like being by either by department or by parts of the show. You kind of did it by themes, right, of that are present in the show, and some of those are the pitch, twin sisters, guardians of peace, prison break, the barrage vow, the Wookiees retreat, the stranger, and the coven, which
Mm.
amazing. And for everyone that hasn't seen the show, see it so you can like understand like why all these thematic elements resonate so much. But how did you land on these as like the guiding themes and topics that you were going to structure all the art around?
Yeah, it's a great question. So typically, uh, again, I will always look back to the existing art books and like, how have we done it before? How should we do it this time? What makes sense for this story? And what became clear very early on was that typically, I think we try and structure things more as like as you discover them throughout the show, that is how we'll present them for you in the book, so
Mhm,
you can kind of follow along as you're watching, or, it feels very familiar because it is kind of laid out for you in that same way
mhm,
that the storytellers have told the story. But in this case, as you know, there's 2 flashback
mhm,
episodes,
mhm, mhm,
and we end up on Brendock at the very end as well. So that was immediately, a question mark for us in terms of organization, because it was you can't go to Brendock 3 times in this book because it
mhm,
doesn't make sense, they don't design it 3 times. But initially we thought maybe it's the beginning and the end, because it is very much the beginning and the end for the story of the sisters. But even that, like, just felt like you would miss some of the poetry of the
mhm,
way
mhm,
they took the flashback sets and then aged them and made them feel burned out and, a little
mhm.
decrepit and a little bit, more.
Weathered. Mhm,
Yeah, yeah. So we really wanted it was a very conscious effort to keep all of that together so that you could really see that transformation, in the same chapter, and on pages that were able to reflect it, more closely together in the book. And then a lot of it is mostly like it's roughly based on location,
mhm,
but it just didn't feel as enticing to me as the writer to name the chapters by location, and in fact, one of them would have been Unknown Planet, and so
mhm,
especially for that one, I was like, that's not a good title for a chapter." So just kind of walking through the story as it unfolds, but then going to each place and, like, what are the elements that you discover there? Who do you meet? What needs to be incorporated here? And helping that using that to kind of help figure out the flow of things.
yeah. Because I think, I mean, that's one of the things that I really like about the show. In a lot of ways, I've always described the show as kind of like a mirror of itself, because you can
Mm.
watch the show from backwards, from the end to the beginning, or from the beginning to the end, or from the middle outwards, and it works. And like a lot of the titles are right, the duality of each theme, right? That Leslie is named the episode for. So I think it's right appropriate that a show that had that complexity thematically of like how it itself is structured in its writing, that the art book should reflect it. So I thought that was really kind of a beautiful way to organize everything, because I think it definitely reflected the show in a very poetic and beautiful way. Um,
So,
so I wanted to, we were talking earlier about some of your previous books with The Art of the High Republic, volumes 1 and 2. Don't forget, there's 2 volumes.
there are.
Um, and those books obviously are talking, it's they're very similar but very different at the same time. You
Mhm.
know, they're both art books, so they're presenting lots of study material and final paintings, renderings, etc., for a project. But the massive difference, right, is that for the High Republic there wasn't actually a visual endpoint, right, for anything, because it was a literary effort, Young Jedi Adventures notwithstanding. But based on that, how were your approaches to both books, right? Because were they mostly similar in like how you approach the High Republic art books versus the Acolyte, or would you say that the nature of one being a publishing an art book for a publishing effort and one being a art book for a TV show kind of changed how you direct how you approached it?
Yeah, I think it did end up being pretty different, and I don't know that I realized how different it was, but until I was working on the Acolyte. Um, because to your point, because High Republic is a publishing initiative, there's a tremendous amount of art made for book covers, for concept art for characters that need to show up in comics, comic pages, like comic book covers. There's a lot of art for those elements, but then it doesn't need to get to the point where somebody builds it, somebody creates
Hmm.
it, somebody makes this costume so that you can see it on screen. So it is a bit of a different edict, and I think we had a smaller percentage of art to pull from then in those books.
Hmm.
So maybe a little bit easier actually on me in terms of having to choose what would make the cut because we didn't have quite the staggering number of individual pieces to need to pick from. But at the same time, I think one of the other really big differences to me is so like Mike Siglain, who's the head of publishing, is essentially like the creator showrunner, I think, of the High Republic
Hmm.
as an
Hmm. Hmm.
initiative. But instead of a lot I mean, you do have the individual artists, but instead of one creative force, like a person who's gonna be the director or the person who's kind of show running beyond Mike, you had 10 different authors who were all bringing character ideas and descriptions, and then those would have to come through the filter, and the lens of an artist,
Hmm.
to take, a character as described in a book and put them on the cover and make sure that it's dialed in. So, really interesting collaborative, initiative overall, but we found, I think, with that one that we needed to talk to all of the authors because they were also a part of the creative and
Hmm.
concepting um, piece of this because of just the nature of books. And so a bit different than when you get to the Acolyte, and it is more of uh, the parts of production that are typically involved in that. Like you do have the art department, but then you also have the fabricators, you have the costume designer, you have, Neil in his creature shop,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
so some of those elements quite a bit different than High Republic, and more of that kind of cause and effect of the writer described this character or created this character, and
Hmm.
now the effect is this artist needs to render them in
Yeah,
2D
yeah.
for a book cover or a piece of concept art or a comic book.
It's a little more straightforward in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
publishing side. Eh,
totally, totally.
ma- eh, Out of curiosity, because I don't know if I got my timelines right in my mind, but were there any overlaps with Volume 2 of High Republic and Art of Acolyte? Because
Oh, overlaps of working on them?
yeah, yeah.
Yes, there definitely were. So I knew
What
Art of
was that experience like? Just like
Acolyte.
seeing the present of High Republic and then kind of seeing where it
Yes.
was gonna end up in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So it was really neat because it allowed us to also connect the 2 a little bit more specifically in the epilogue for Art of Volume 2,
Hmm.
where we did introduce like, by that point, Kelnaka had walked Jedi Master Headland out on stage at
Hmm.
Celebration, so we knew what Kelnaka looked like, we had art for that. We, of course, knew what Vernestra Rowe was going to look like, because
Mhm.
there had been a reveal of, I think,
She's right
her.
there. There we go.
Yes, there she is. There she is. So we knew we had a couple elements that were already safe to play with and had been released, and were things that, because I think this is always part of like the mental gymnastics too. You're going through with a book where it's like, when is this showing up in the world, and what will have happened? What will
Mhm, mhm.
so how do
Right,
we
you're
solve for
living
that?
in
And it was like,
two moments in time at the same time, like the present,
exactly.
but then what's gonna happen in X amount of
Yes.
months or years or whatever the thing gets
Yes.
released.
And so with, Art of Volume 2 especially, we were like, "Okay, well, these things have already been revealed as we're writing it, so safe to say that we can include them and at least just, like, touch on nods to this is the future of the High Republic as we know it, as what's been announced." But then, of course, secretly I knew, and I'm gonna write a whole book about it. So
It's a good secret. It's a good secret to
it's a
have.
good secret. My hair is full of secrets.
My secrets are
I
not good, so like I wish they were this much fun.
I mean, it is a pretty fun secret. It's also always fantastic when we finally get to reveal the secret and
Mhm,
announce the book, um, because you work so hard on it and for so long on it before those things get
mhm.
announced. It's just really lovely when you can finally share that with the world, and even better when it shows up on shelves and everybody gets to experience it.
Yeah, and I know, I mean, the fandom for both the High Republic and the Acolyte, which obviously have crossover in between them, have been
Yeah,
so passionate about both projects that I know that when both, the Art of High Republic and Art of the Acolyte were announced and eventually published, I know that there was love and enthusiasm because everyone wants these worlds to continue, right? Because it's a side of Star Wars that I feel has invigorated a lot of people in the fandom, especially with all of the diversity that High Republic gave us, and obviously Acolyte continued to give us.
yeah,
Um, with Acolyte though being in the tail end of the High Republic and starting to get us closer to Episode 1, it's not right in the High Republic proper like phases 1, 2, and 3. But
hmm
were there any obscure connections from the art that you were compiling for the Art of the Acolyte that is your kind of your favorite obscure connection to the High Republic publishing effort?
yeah,
Obviously, we have Vernestra and all these like and the Cantoros and things like that. But is there
yeah.
any other ones that you're like, oh, that was a good deep cut?
I think just the fact that the Barrage Vow factors
Mhm,
in to the series, and I think we have some art too where you can, see Torben as he is meditating, and and that was a little bit of I guess maybe a bit of a if you know you know in terms of
mhm,
naming a chapter after that, because it is such a fun piece of not only High Republic publishing but just Star Wars publishing,
mhm.
because that actually came into play pre High Republic, but then became such a important piece of it.
Yeah, and it was Charles, right? That like put
Mhm.
that in a Vader comic, was it?
Yeah.
And the branch
Charles
bell
is
made us.
also always like playing 3D chess, I think. Like
He's
he's always
I,
thinking so far ahead.
I think it's playing 4D at this point. I'm just like I
Yeah,
can't keep up with the
he
with
is.
like and Kevin Scott also was putting some High Republic nods even before I think High Republic was announced with some of the Dooku stuff that he was doing
Yes.
if I'm not
Yeah.
mistaken. So looking forward to more High Republic, especially now that we got it in Jedi Survivor. So we've been seeing how it's the tendrils of the High Republic keep
Yeah.
keep extending. So hopefully Phase more continues in more ways than one.
Yeah.
Um, but in going back to artwork, one of the things that for me is fascinating, especially like in this age of AI, where like it's very questionable, like people who did what. The book is very tangible and like this is people driven and humans doing it, which is insane thing to think about now because when I wrote these questions I wouldn't have even have mentioned AI because it wasn't even factoring right in a lot of these narratives. But uh, the book shows a lot of like both hand drawn rendering but also digital animation for a lot of the work that was done in the show. So like what was that process like for your perception, right? In terms of like all the artists that are working on it in this world that's like so digital, but then having the more handcrafted artisan made, handmade drawings.
Yeah, I think you always want to include a variety. Um, especially in these books, because I think one of the most important things that they do is showcase that very rarely does somebody come up with an idea and immediately it's the final execution. It's the best version of it. It
Mhm,
is, it's like born and immediately like Darth Vader wasn't Darth Vader initially. Like there was a lot of exploration and creative concepting that goes into getting that character into the final form, and true for everything
mhm,
that is made, but especially with Star Wars, where there's a lot of exploration to also make sure that it feels like it fits into that galaxy, it belongs there, it's a part of it. Shape language and a lot of other things
mhm,
that folks like Doug Chang and other artists are a lot more well versed in because they're using those rules every single day and factoring that into their design work. But really fascinating to also see just like the amount of craftsmanship that went into some people either doing hand drawings or
mhm.
kind of more like blueprint style
Yeah.
pieces. Ephemera that shows up in a show but has to be designed is always one of my favorite
Mhm,
things. Um, and then also, I think with this one of my favorite elements was getting to talk to people about the design of the mark,
mhm,
uh,
mhm, mhm,
that shows up on the twins and Amandla Stenberg herself, again, just an amazing actor, but a collaborative force on this
mhm,
project and someone who did a deep dive into her own version of like headcanon of what
mhm,
she thought, her characters were about and asked a lot of questions and then was involved in some of that, at least offering suggestions in some of the design work and the nitty gritty. And that's just so fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, it's the plethora, right, of like all of the variety of all this work is incredible, and like, and you were talking about the blueprints, and I just also because I can't have enough books. Apparently, just got the Star Wars blueprints new edition that was just published, and it's just so fascinating, right, to see because as I was mentioning earlier, like I work in architecture, and like everything is digital nowadays, and we just use
Yeah.
computer software to do a lot of the design work that we do. So kind of to see like Star Wars in this day and age still kind of like obviously embraced digital technologies as we should, but also kind of keep the old ways and like
Yeah.
this handcrafted quality, such a kind of beautiful thing of like the traditional and the modern in a lot of
Yeah.
ways.
There's a couple really cool elements too, I think, in this book in particular, where like you'll see some of the studies that they did in hair and makeup
Hmm, hmm.
that I think were hand drawn. And then like by the time we get them, they were just like, yep, we snapped a picture. Like they didn't save it. It was really just part of like it's on the wall, they're choosing things.
Yeah.
But to be able to incorporate some of those things, and then like there's a ship model. And again, it's like it goes all the way back to the very DNA of Star Wars that there's kit bashing and model
Mhm.
making, and so to have like some physical models be a part of this and then get to incorporate them in the book also was really special.
It was great to see the model of the vector in the book. I was like, ah, there we go. We need
So good.
we need more vectors. But we keep talking about like all the incredible artwork in the book. But was there any particular piece that was that surprised you the most that was included in there? That was that also your favorite by any chance?
Oh, so I will say there's a piece that I have had. I signed a couple books where I've had to apologize for it because there's a piece of Kelnaka's End
Hmm.
in the book. I think it might be page 86, but you'd have to fact check me on that.
Oh, God, check right
And
now.
it's so sad. Like when we were including it, I made myself sad. But so it's not my favorite piece, but it is one that I was like, it's a little surprising that this piece even exists because typically, as you may know, like concept art is more about the design so it can be fabricated. It's not
Mhm.
really about capturing moments. Was it 86?
There was costumes in '86, but
Oh,
oh
no,
yeah,
alright.
oh,
Maybe
that's fine.
46?
That's fine.
I don't know, it's okay. You know what? You'll have to
We'll
read
get
the
there.
book to
You'll
find
have to
out.
buy the book and find it.
You
Yeah.
gotta buy the book to find out. But that was one. I think it just surprised me that there was a piece of art for that moment, but also it was so sad. So not my favorite, but surprising for sure. And then I think in along the lines of my favorite ones, I really love all of the stranger explorations.
Mhm.
There's so many bizarre
Oh
ones
yeah, the one with the
that
eyeball. Yeah.
yes, yeah, like, there's some that look like they belong in an art museum and also, like and this may be one of the reasons that some of those didn't make the cut in terms of what was chosen, but, like, they're
Mhm.
really cool explorations, but there were a few of them that I was like, "How would you actually make that?" I don't know. They would have figured it out if that had been the
Oh yeah.
pick, but I think it would have been incredibly difficult to render as something that would be wearable. But just really love all of those explorations, and just the detail that goes into the costume design as
Mhm.
well for like some of the, more background characters who they're on this they're walking through a scene. You may or may not even see them in focus, but
Mhm.
they've created this costume down to, like, the shoes and the way that they do details on, like, the garments and the stitching and just really just for me, it always stokes my awe at the brilliance at every level,
Mhm.
but also the tremendous amount of care that goes into every last detail, whether you're gonna
Yeah.
see it on screen or not.
And eventually it'll be an action figure that Paolo will name, and it'll end up in a visual dictionary with a
Yes.
Wikipedia
Yes.
article. So
Indeed.
it maybe someone will do from a certain point of view book about the acolyte, and there'll be a story about that specific
Yes.
character.
Yeah.
Um, we're talking a lot about things that made the book. Were there
Yes.
any was there any piece of art that you were saddened that didn't make the cut?
Yes. So the pitch chapter is also one of my favorites because it goes through some of the early, early days of what could this story be? What could it look like? It's a lot of art that typically is not very close to where the final rendition actually ends up in, but
Hmm.
helps to kind of tell that story as they're, pulling together in early development, getting it greenlit. And I love that art so much. But there was so much more than what we could include, but because it's a single chapter, we had to be so judicious with choosing like one or two of the best versions of something that showcases like what were they thinking of for the young twins? What were they thinking of for Soul originally? And also just like the castle elements and like what ended
Hmm.
up being
Yeah, the
the
castle
Grundok
is
fortress,
incredible. Yeah.
but the way it was originally like more of a fairy tale setting of like royalty and beauty and for someone who loves architecture like
Hmm.
beautiful architectural design. And so there's so many more pieces that I have seen that could go into that chapter, but I could write you a whole book that's just about the pitch based on that art, and we would never get to all of the other cool things that we were able to include. So, there's not like one image that sticks out that I wish we had included, but there's just like a variety of I wish we had more pages to do even more of exploring especially that early those early ideas.
I mean, you can do just a volume two. I'll
There
buy
you
it.
go, there you go.
I'll buy it.
Volume 2, but it's actually volume -1 because we
Exactly.
love to do things
Exactly.
out of order in Star Wars, it's fine.
It's fine. It's part of the mythos.
Yeah.
But to that end, about the for lack of a better word, the rejects. Like, what's the process of rejecting, right? Because it must be very difficult, right, to be surrounded by all this incredible work that supports the narrative of the book. And unfortunately, like you were saying, like there's a limit to the amount of pages that your book is ultimately going to have. So there's necessarily a limited amount of pieces that must be chosen. So what's the process to cut things that this, as heartbreaking as it may be? Like,
Yeah.
how do you manage it?
It's really hard, a big factor is does this piece carry a really cool story? Is it something that, like there's some really great artwork for May's costume design and, uh, you know, as we were going through the interviews, getting a lot of cool insights into details from it. So, like, that was a great one. Obviously, it would have made the cut anyway because it is literally the final concept art for one of the main characters. Gonna include it, what she looks like. But something like that can really make or break for something that is a piece that is earlier in the process, especially the pitch art, where I think what you're really just trying to do is showcase kind of the full breadth of things
Mhm.
and have one or two for each of those main elements. So one or two of Soul, one or two of the girls, one or two of the castle, but not go too in depth with any one element.
Mhm.
because you know you have such limited space. So just really trying to kind of both as I think the author and working collaboration with the designers of choosing your favorite, but also in collaboration with, Leslie and Kevin, and what do they feel like is the most essential, or talking to individual artists. And also sometimes it really comes down to, because this is a printed book, what's gonna look really
Mhm.
good in print? That might be the determining factor when you have 5 or 6 really great pieces and you're just trying to figure out, "Okay, this one's really dark, it may not print as well, it may not show up as well, but this one, that has other tones is gonna
Mhm.
be the
Mhm.
winner." Even if it is, the same subject, the same location, or, in some cases, like, the design gets dialed in with very small elements where it's like, maybe it's largely the same look, but then the belt's a little different, or the
Yeah.
hair is different on this one. So, just trying to always showcase the pieces that I think have a really good story to tell, but also
Yeah.
give you insight into just how much or how little changes from the first concept piece to the final design.
And now, kind of as a tangential question, as you were saying that, right? Because there's a difference between compiling the images and writing the interviews versus uh, designing the book, right? In terms of like the layout of how how do the pages look and how are the images organized. So yeah, I wonder, like, is that a part that like you also take a part in designing, or like what's the process of like actually assembling the book, right, so to speak.
Sure. So I choose my darlings. I pick my favorites. And also, like, create a caption doc for the designers so that they know
Mhm.
which pieces have a bit of a story to tell. But then, really, it is just trusting them and their expertise. We have some really amazing designers at Abrams, and they've been doing this a really long time. So every once in a while, I'll make a suggestion, or I might give them kind of a short list of, we have a 2-page splash here. I think we should go with one of these 3 pieces, but you
Mhm.
tell me. And very few times did I go back with any notes on what they did choose, because they do such an amazing job of really stuffing these art books so full
Mhm.
of different art, and figuring a way to kind of like Jenga them together in a layout
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
both beautiful but allows you to incorporate so many different pieces on every single spread.
Yeah, I mean, if you need help, just let me know. I'll gladly open InDesign and whip up some some layouts.
Appreciate it.
Um, but I think that's a really interesting answer, because it speaks to collaboration, right? Like how no one is doing anything in a silo, right? And no one's an island. We're all archipelagos, I guess. And a book of this magnitude is a testament to that, right? It's a testament to collaboration at all the different departments at Lucasfilm and Abrams. So what's it like, right, to kind of juggle that, because you're going through a lot of different uh, kinds of collaboration, right? You're going through not just on the publishing end with Abrams and the graphic designers to get the book assembled, but then you have to kind of coordinate with like the artist ILM or Leslie, and like all these different pieces and departments that come together. So what's that process to juggle all these entities?
Yeah, I think with this one also, I was incredibly grateful to have partnership from inside Lucasfilm PR. Lynn Cowan and I were probably talking every single day for a while, working on this. And so that was just, she was such a tremendous advocate and huge help on this one to get us over the finish line. But I think it is a lot of moving parts and a lot of pieces to juggle, but at the same time, like, you're all working toward the same goal. And because it's a show that, we can all watch the same episodes, like, you're all working towards the same vision of how it was executed as well. So I think, like, that's tremendously helpful. There's not a lot of ego that you will
Mhm.
find on these pages or among these crews. Because everyone does understand, I think, that they're all working towards kind of the larger cohesive whole. And you can have an amazing design, or you can be the concept artist behind a really key character or moment, but it's still all just part of this tapestry of things. So I think everybody is really kind of moving in the same direction, and that is a
Yeah.
tremendous help when you're juggling. So it's not like opposing forces, it's more just everybody kind of rallying together and pushing towards the same goal, which I think with these art books as well, part of it is to be able to celebrate just the sheer quantity of artistry and people and collaboration that went into it.
It's beautiful to hear that because it's so foreign to me to hear that everyone's on board to collaborate in a vision in the same direction. Because I can tell you in architecture that's not the case. You know, architects, contractors, and engineers are, at odds with each other more often than not. So I would love to live a different
I'm
that beautiful
sure.
reality.
Right, I'm sure there may be moments of that happening department by department, day over day, but by the time I roll up and I'm like, "Here's the art that we have," I think we're all kind of driving towards the same direction.
Great. We love to hear that. Um, and speaking about like directions, we were all previously talking about how the themes of the show, and I think one of the themes that we were discussing was the theme of duality and like how
Mm.
the show talks about different sides of not just a person but of the force, so on and so forth. And in a lot of ways, I think that there's a duality with your book with Pablo's the visual dictionary for the Acolyte, which it kind of explores it in a similar way, right? Because it showcases a lot of the designs, but from a different perspective, right? So, how would you say that the visual dictionary and the art of the Acolyte cross pollinate and complement each other?
Yeah, so we were working that on them, in similar time frames. I think Pablo probably, was done a little bit earlier because I think his book came out before mine. Although that's not always the case. There's so many factors that dictate that. But, yeah, I think definitely they really go hand in hand, but while this one is like the behind the scenes, looking at the real people who made this story a reality. His is very lore driven and
Hmm.
deeper and more like in the weeds, I would say, with getting to name. I love the bartender and his Kaibuck and Kaibuck Jr. And like I think they were just barkeep in the art, and then of course it's working with Pablo to make sure that anything that he's either discovered or had a chance to name, that it is being reflected also
Hmm.
in the art book because that is the name of the character now.
Yeah, that sounds like that's a lot of emails and lots of emails, lots of coordinating to make sure that no, there's no contradictions there.
Yes.
So.
Yes, and, fortunately, also, we have such a great process, though, of so many people look at these books before they go out the
Mhm.
door so that we can catch some of those without emails, but also sometimes, again, like, Pablo and I work in the same building, so sometimes I catch him in the kitchen, and I'm like, "Pablo, I got a question for you. I'm gonna message you right away because I we need to know. I have a burning question about this character and what their name is."
That's crazy. Just run like to roam the halls of Lucasfilm is must be a joy. At
It
least
really is.
at least on the outside. It's like I don't know. Maybe it
Listen, I
gets
won't even
normalized.
pretend that it's not because, you get used to it. However, there's still moments that, really surprise you, and, like, I think one of the big ones is, like, in our lobby space, there's a case, and
Mhm.
that what's in that case changes from time to time. So sometimes, like, I'll walk in and it's like, "Oh, all the costumes from Mandalorian and Grogu are up now. Amazing."
Yeah.
No idea. So always an opportunity to turn a corner and be stunned by something that wasn't there the day before.
Yeah, it's incredible. Like it's a dream. It's a dream.
It is.
Um,
It really is.
but coming back to themes, and especially with the theme of duality, we're talking about the book, but now like properly, right, with the show. How do you feel that then your book, The Art of the Acolyte, reflects right the theme of duality that Leslie wanted to showcase in the show? How do you feel that the book accomplishes the showcasing of that theme?
Ooh, that's a great question. Um, my hope is that it is reflective, especially in that final chapter,
Mm,
um, where you see kind of the coven, but also the duality of you know, the twins as well as Brendock before and after. But I think there's just a lot of moments in the show that then were captured in the art and
mm.
by necessity in the book where you really get to see kind of how that plays out and how that attention to the detail, you know, really comes together.
Yeah, I mean, it's beautiful show. So like I definitely want to see a lot more of it. But before we get into that, what's the most surprising takeaway from this art book
Oh,
that has taught you about Star Wars, right? Because every different Star Wars teaches you something. And I think one of the interesting things from at least the way I see it thinking from your perspective is like I'm receiving Star Wars as a spectator. But when you
yeah.
receive Star Wars, you know, as a creator, like, what takeaway have you gotten from this?
Yeah. I think I know I said it earlier, but it is just so striking and true to me that the people making Star Wars today are invariably people who grew up as fans first, whether they were diehard fans or whether they just knew of it, had it more of a passing affinity, were casual fans, you know, whatever the case may be. We're almost 50 years into this
Mhm,
franchise. So everybody who's working on it pretty much, you know, started out as seeing it and watching the story before they actually got a chance to work on it, with
mhm,
a few exceptions, of course, very notable exceptions. Um, but I think one of the takeaways from working on this book is, you know, from Leslie, but across the board, it's such a personal story when you're working on a Star Wars story. You put so much of yourself and your personality into
mhm,
it. And you see that even with the stories shared by some of the artists and some of the other departments where, you know, they're pulling on threads from their own experience, from their
mhm,
own lives, from their own histories, and incorporating those into the design so it feels relatable, like it has you know, just that I think it's the Doug Chang 80/20 rule where it's like
mhm, mhm.
80% feels familiar and then 20% is just a little twisted and you're just a little bit like,
Yep.
but that's different, you know, and it's like the Walkman turning into eventually the, you know, being the inspiration for and turning into the Pip Droid, and things of that nature. But I think it's just it's something that I really take to heart and think about a lot than in the other, you know, other books that I might write or other work that
Mm,
I might do, whether it's a fictional space or whether it's a news story. You know, just remembering to put a part of yourself into the work
mhm.
that you do and not be afraid to have it be a little personal or have it be a little reflective of your own experience and your own uh you know your own life.
Yeah, oh, that's beautiful. Definitely appreciate that answer. Thank you.
Yeah. No,
Because
thank
now we're
you.
gonna get into some kind of weird, well, not weird, but I know they're gonna be difficult questions to answer. So I know you have to
Okay.
maneuver around these
It's the
as we start
unhinged
to.
part of the interview.
I don't want to say unhinged,
Okay,
but you know, more speculative, right?
okay,
And it's
okay.
I'm I'm not trying to fish, I promise.
Sure, okay, that's
But
okay.
uh, we've been talking a lot about how the Acolyte reflects the High Republic and how much
Mhm.
the love fandom has for the High Republic. So I think the we know that has been announced that there's phase more. We know that for now, at least, the story of the Acolyte is over. So what would you like to see from the I mean, to the extent that you can answer, right? What would you
Sure.
like to see from the Acolyte and the High Republic as we move forward to the 50th anniversary of Star Wars and beyond?
Yes, I will say purely as a fan, just as Kristen the fan, not from any professional capacity, because I certainly don't have a vote in this, either, but also just, like, as a fan of this story and these characters, I would love to see what the stranger does next. I'd love to see another stranger story. Uh, you never know, always emotion is the
Hmm.
future. But I think like that is a character that still has a lot of mystery and a
Hmm.
lot of exploration. And you never know if we'll see it or not, but that would be my vote personally because I love that character so much.
I mean, you and I mean, I was like, come on, let's go.
I
We're
will
ready.
say I did get the opportunity to write a short story in Star Wars Insider that was based in around the New Republic era,
Mhm,
and it was a Rey story. And that was also my own way to put in just a piece of my love of High Republic and Acolyte by
mhm,
creating a droid that had a pip droid essentially for a head. And it was like it was pieced together, but it was
mhm.
like so that is my contribution, I
To
guess, so
keep
far
to
of
keep
continuing
threading,
that
yeah.
thread. And also it's such a neat shorthand to give something so much history
Mhm,
that other folks who love High Republic and the Acolyte clock because they're like, "Oh, I know what that is, and I know
yeah.
that's a very old thing, so this droid is ancient by the time you get into New Republic."
I mean, and we got a little bit of that in Mando and Grogu when Zeb drops the mech neck reference, and I was like, "Oh, there we go.
Yes.
We
Yeah,
got a little
yeah,
acolyte in our Mando and Grogu." So it lives
yeah,
on, and hopefully it continues to. But besides High Republic and the acolyte, are there any other areas of Star Wars that you would like to explore? You know, as a in terms of an art book or writing fiction? Like what would you
yeah.
like to do in Star Wars?
That's a oh, that's such
I know it's a
a
complicated
tough
one.
one. That's a hard question. This is the part where the interview gets difficult. Uh I would love to I'm so grateful to have had the chance to do 2 pieces of short fiction so far. Would love to do more fiction just across the board, I think, in my career, whether it's in Star Wars or not. It's something that has always just kind of burned very brightly for me, but is also, um it can be a little daunting
Mhm,
because I'm so used to pulling my story from, like, the reporting, from the interviews,
mhm,
like, having the story show itself through conversation, and so when you're working in fiction, obviously, that conversation's all happening in your mind, and you're responsible for what people say, not just getting the quotes and then threading them together, so it's a very different beast, but would love to do some more fiction, and always up for another massive, coffee table book, although, Phil Shostak has really beaten me to it on this one because, complete series or the art of or the complete series
mhm.
is coming out before too long,
Oof.
and I'm so excited for that one, and to just get my hands on it and get to see all of the design work that went into that show too.
Honestly, I mean, I think that that book and your book are kind of companion pieces because in a lot of ways, I feel that both Andor and Acolyte were kind of innovators in terms of like Star Wars designs in very different directions, but in a kind of beautiful way. I think they both work together. So I'm really excited to see like how Andor what that show will that book will show us because Acolyte was definitely a treat to go through. So it's definitely a book that I think all fans of the Acolyte, the High Republic, and Star Wars in general should buy. And I'm very appreciative for you to for writing it and giving us such a beautiful gift here.
Well, thank you so much for the kind words. It's truly such a joy to get to work on any of these books, but just really such a fun time to get to put something together like this and to get to talk to all the people who created it, and to really get to tell that story too, and have something that it can serve as a companion to your next rewatch of the show
Mhm.
and really just digging into more of the elements of how it was done.
Yeah, publishing's really like I think in a really great place right now. We're getting such a plethora of different things from like these art books, visual guides. We have like a romance novel coming out soon.
Yes.
We have Legacy coming out. Like there's a really a lot of really great things that are coming out for Star Wars publishing. That's really exciting. I'm looking forward to see Chris Kempshall Starfighter. Like we got historical fiction going on. So it's
So excited for that one. I'm excited for a lot of them, but that one in particular, just a big Dr. Chris Kempshall fan
oh
over
yeah,
at my house. So
we're a
yes.
fan of Dr. Chris here on this
Yeah.
household too. So I'm looking forward. Ever since Resistance Reborn, I've been like, more Wedge. Come on, let's do it. So
Oh,
so we'll
yeah.
see. So we'll see what happens there. But
We'll see.
Kristen, before we wrap up, uh,
Sure.
also a difficult question. Actually I don't know if it's a difficult question. But do you have any projects that you're currently working on that you
Ooh,
can share with us that that people know what you're up to?
not a difficult question because the answer is no.
Great. We all deserve a break.
Easy peasy, easy. Yes, I mean, I will say also, the last couple of months have just been so busy in the online space as it pertains to,
Yes.
supporting Maul, Shadowlord, which is just such a
Which
delight
also
to
needs an
get
art
to
book, by the
support it.
way. I think a lot of us would devour an art book of Shadow Lord.
Yes, the artistry that has gone into it, the actual matte paintings, every
Hmm.
brushstroke, the way they've designed everything, it is gorgeous.
Well, and
But
also I think I don't remember who wrote the article at StarWars.com, but showing that there was actually a model that was also kit bashed for one of the
yes,
scenes. I mean, it's like there's
yes.
incredible combination of stuff
The
in there.
great Lucas Seastrom, who's also the editor over at ILM.com and is, just such a wonderful collaborator as well because, he just goes so deep into the weeds of the history and the details and just every greebly on that thing.
Hmm. Hmm.
But again, like, what a wild concept that we have a physical ship model that's in an animated show. But all of this to say it's been so great, working with the team on Shadowlord to talk about that on StarWars.com, and of course, working on The Mandalorian and Grogu. Um, but yeah, I think having a little bit of a break
Yeah,
is okay too. A little bit of a breather. Time to, of course, go watch Mandalorian Grogu yet again. I'm up to 3 watches now. Last time I saw it was in IMAX.
I got
So
four. I
you're
got
you're
four.
at 4. All right, you're beating me.
I have
I gotta
four.
go to I
Last
gotta
one
go to the
was
theater tonight.
4DX, and I'm
Ooh, okay.
like I'm 37 these days, so like my lower back was in agony after that, but it was a
Yes,
lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to watch it in
yes.
4DX.
Was
I
there
definitely
any
recommend it.
point, like, with the dragon snake, did they squirt water at you? Was
Yes,
that part of it? Yeah, okay.
correct. They throw everything but the kitchen sink at you. There's water, there's smoke, they throw snow. It's like it's a fully
Okay, that is
immersive
neat.
experience.
Alright, I didn't know about the snow. Now I kinda wanna go see it in 4D, maybe I will.
You
Is there a
must.
moment where when they get to "Big pipe, huh?" Is there a big pipe? Do they
No, no, it's just well, that's the thing, and I don't,
Alright.
and I don't know if it was the theater in which I saw it, but the screen itself wasn't. It was like boxed in, so it wasn't like fully
Mm,
an immersive. Like, I mean, it wasn't obviously going to be IMAX, but it was
sure, yeah.
smaller than Dolby also. So that was kind of like the bizarre part. And I don't like 3D glasses because glasses on glasses is very
Yeah.
difficult for me. But in terms of everything else, I think that it's definitely worth it. And I think if there's a
Ah,
Star Wars movie, I mean, I think all Star Wars movies would be great on 4DX. But if there's one that I think is particularly great for Mando and for 4DS, it is Mando and Grogu.
uh,
So
yeah, I
just
love
saying.
that. Alright.
But
No,
thank you so much, Kristen, for joining me here and talking a little bit and spending some time with me to talk about the art of the acolyte. It's been such a wonderful conversation. I definitely appreciate the time to revisit this wonderful show and talk about the wonderful artists that were able to contribute to this a beautiful book. But before we sign off, where can people find you?
yes, so, you can find me, of course, on StarWars.com and, also on various social platforms at KRISTIN Baver, typically Instagram. These days, I feel like I haven't been keeping up as much with my social presence maybe as
It's
I
probably
have
for the
in the
best, I
past.
will say.
Probably a good thing, yeah. Uh but yeah, please do, give me a follow, drop me a line. Always happy to chat Star Wars and art. I always say if I wasn't doing this job, I would like in a different timeline, I would work in an art museum because I just absolutely am captivated by that skill, probably
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's not one that I have seem to have myself. I know I haven't worked on it that hard either. I could probably, work on my sketching, but, just such an amazing thing that, I've been in love with since I was a little kid. So, really really always fun when those threads of the things that make up who we are as people, but also things that we enjoy so much come
Yeah.
together, into one focused thing.
I mean, that's why I'm definitely looking forward to the Lucas Museum of Narrative Arts because that seems like it's
Same.
like an amalgam of everything that I specifically love. It's beautiful architectural piece. It's a beautiful building just to house an incredible collection. It's a the
Mhm.
connection with Star Wars and George and Melody, and that's I don't even live in LA, and I got a membership, so I'm definitely looking forward
Same,
to
yeah.
flying out and
Yes.
looking at everything there. I
Yes.
mean, and the Academy Museum, no,
So many good things. Yeah.
it's a great time. But
It really is.
if for everyone listening and watching, if you haven't followed Kristen, make sure to follow her. She's an incredible presence in our community, and we're very lucky to have her amongst the Star Wars universe. So I will leave links down in the description below, so you can please go and follow her and read obviously all her books. Buy the Art of Star Wars: The Acolyte at your local bookstore or wherever books can be found. Read all the articles on StarWars.com.
Thank
They're
you.
wonderful and
Thank
extremely
you.
well curated. But like I said, thank you so much, Kristen, for joining us, and thank you everyone for listening. If you have enjoyed everything that you've heard, please make sure to share, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a if this is an Apple podcast, leave a review. It really helps. This is YouTube. Subscribe, leave a comment. Algorithms work apparently, and anything you do definitely helps us, and we appreciate your support. But with that, thank you so much for listening. We have been Triad of the Force, and may the Force be with you.